to sign that executive order. Judge Andrew Napolitano is the host of Judging Freedom on the great Judging Freedom podcast, and one of the smartest people that we know. And when all of this is hitting the fan, you get the liberals on one side, you get the conservatives on the other, you get the Trump administration saying one thing, you get liberal mayors saying another thing. We want to go to the judge to get the truth here. Judge, great to see you. I guess let's unpack these ice-free zones.
Be on with both of you. Thank you.
Always great to have you, Judge. So when you look at Brandon Johnson in Chicago and these ice-free zones in this executive order, does it have any teeth, and what will the Trump administration be able to do?
The short answers are no and almost whatever it wants if it follows the law. So when the feds come into a municipality to enforce a federal law, the feds are superior to local law enforcement. They cannot commandeer local law enforcement to help them or to do their job for them, but law enforcement cannot interfere. So as offensive as it is to some people for ICE to be wearing masks, a California statute prohibiting law enforcement from wearing masks is enforceable only against California law enforcement, not against the feds. I mean, the short answer is that the state can look the other way and not help the feds, but it cannot aggressively interfere. The problem with ICE is that it is using an instrument which has never been ruled on by the Supreme Court to effectuate these arrests, and it's called an administrative warrant. It is not an arrest warrant based on the Constitution. It is something crafted by low-level courts to make ICE's job easier for it. There is no standard that ICE must meet in order to effectuate the warrant. So if they walk into a warehouse or an industrial facility where they see people who look like they're Hispanic and they say in Spanish, who here speaks Spanish, and everybody raises their hands, they proceed to arrest those people. Now, speaking Spanish or raising your hands is not evidence of any criminality and would never hold water if the Fourth Amendment were applied, which says arrests can only occur pursuant to a warrant based upon a probable cause sworn to by a judge. However, because this is a quasi-public place where ICE can just walk in, a warehouse, it's private property, but it's quasi-public, meaning anybody could walk in there. The lower courts have allowed these arrests. The Supreme Court has never ruled on the constitutionality of administrative warrants, and most judges, including this retired one, speaking to you now, believe that these administrative warrants are unconstitutional and should not be complied with. But that's what ICE is doing. As a result, they sweep up all kinds of people, including American citizens, who sometimes spend a day or two in detention until each person is examined. The Fourth Amendment requires this examination before arrest.
So let's talk a little bit, though, about the precedents, because Gavin Newsom is gaining a lot of popularity on X by talking tough about suing the Trump administration, saying we're not going to allow you to take our National Guard over to Oregon. You can't do that. But the California ruling, the courts ruled that the California deployment was legal because it was the National Guard protecting federal places and federal buildings. And that is something that I think the media sort of overlooks. They're acting like Trump has troops patrolling the streets like stormtroopers. What he can do is protect federal places, which is what was done in California. So if he continues to have that as his intention in, say, Chicago and Portland, then Democrats are just screaming dumb things, right? So can you make that distinction?
Well, in the California case, there was an actual trial. It was in San Francisco. I don't know why the trial was in San Francisco when everybody involved in the case was 400 miles to the south in Los Angeles. But the trial judge there, who was partially affirmed and partially overruled, found that the feds were chasing drunk drivers, arresting drug dealers, even chasing shoplifters. Well, the police like it.
Well, heaven forbid, right, that should happen.
Well, the federal law forbids that. The police like it because it's more cops on the street, or it's more authority on the street doing their job. But federal law expressly prohibits troops from engaging in law enforcement. So after this judge barred the federal troops, the appellate court said, well, we'll bar them from engaging in law enforcement, but we can't bar them from protecting federal assets because there's another federal statute that says the president can use them for federal assets. So if the troops were used only to protect federal assets, which means a federal building and federal employees, then it's perfectly constitutional. But if they're being used for law enforcement purposes because the president believes that it will help law enforcement and it will make the streets safer, he can't do that without Congress changing the law.
Right. But I mean, imagine, oh no, they were chasing drunk drivers. I realize that that's outside the purview of the law.
Well,
but
here's what happened.
not want that?
A lot of the troops were not trained in ordinary law enforcement. They weren't trained in stopping people. They weren't trained in giving them Miranda warning. They weren't trained in preservation of evidence. So a lot of people that were arrested by the troops in Los Angeles, scot-free. They can't be prosecuted because the troops didn't know what rules to follow when it came to arrest. Now, you could teach someone how to do an arrest in about a week, but you can't do it in a few hours on the streets.
You know, I honestly couldn't do this job every day if it wasn't for ExpressVPN. That's not an exaggeration. Every single day that I need to check websites, read reports, access sources from around the world, I need to use ExpressVPN because the truth is many of those websites are censored. This just happened to me, in fact. I was in the UK, I was in Scotland, and I had to jump on a couple of different websites. I couldn't, they were blocked. And without ExpressVPN, I would have some kind of a wall, like I have, /redacted.
Okay.
What about this sanctuary city component of all of this? Does that come into play here, Judge?
Well, Clayton, that is a facade. Well, let me explain it. If by sanctuary city is meant the feds can't come in, then it's a facade. If by sanctuary city is meant state or city employees are not going to help the feds, well, that is lawful. In an opinion written by Justice Scalia, Opinions versus the United States. We're now in the Clinton era, where Congress enacted gun regulations and said we're going to require the states to enforce it. Justice Scalia wrote a very famous opinion saying, well, you can't do that. You can't commandeer state assets to enforce federal law. So the state cannot actively interfere, but it can refuse to cooperate. So it depends what is meant by sanctuary city. If by sanctuary city is meant feds go home, not going to work. If by sanctuary city is meant our people are not going to help you, you're going to have to enforce federal law on your own, well, that's what the Supreme Court has authorized.
Can I ask you another question? This has been sticking in my brain for a while. We saw this in Washington, D.C., Judge, which is obviously a weird animal because it's the District of Columbia, but nonetheless, you had basically military tribunals. You had military lawyers coming into D.C. because, and if I'm not mistaken, military judges as well, where they had to come in because can you really trust, in this liberal city, can you trust that they're going to get fair hearing here? And the Trump administration was doing this. They were bringing in these individuals into the city to basically put them through a military style hearing instead of a normal, like, civilian style process.
I have never heard of this. I knew that there were military lawyers there, but that was to advise the commanders on what the troops can do and what not to do. But a military tribunal would have no jurisdiction over civilians arrested by the military. It only has jurisdiction over combatants, whether lawful or unlawful, arrested by the military. And a combatant.
Would they be considered a combatant? I mean, if you have these federal forces that are being attacked by Antifa, and they're now labeled as a domestic terrorist organization, would that be an unlawful
No.
combatant?
But, well,
Well,
there
there's
is
no-
no such
there's
thing
no-
as a
there's
domestic
no,
terrorist, right? I mean,
Ask
we're
again,
parts-
please. I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry, we were talking over each other. There's really no such thing as a domestic terrorist.
Correct.
So-
That is a phrase, I won't say the president made it up because it's been around for a while, but that's a non-legal phrase that the president used. The technical phrase is enemy combatant, lawful and unlawful. So a lawful enemy combatant means the United States has declared war on another country, or another country has declared war on the United States, and this human being is in uniform and is a soldier for the other country and gets arrested. That is a lawful enemy combatant. He takes his uniform off and comes behind enemy lines. He comes to the United States. That is an unlawful enemy combatant. Both of those people are entitled to trials by military tribunal, but under no circumstances are civilians not affiliated with a foreign government entitled to military tribunals. Clayton, this is the first time I've heard that there were or may have been tribunals in D.C.
Yeah, we covered it a few weeks ago here on the show. I mean, I guess bottom line, Judge, is that, to your point, ICE has the authority here. The federal government has the authority. These mayors signing these ICE-free zones is just political theater.
Correct. It is the mayors, and in the case of Gavin Newsom, a governor, playing to their base. But they know, or they should have lawyers that work for them who will tell them this is legally moot, this is legally meaningless.
Now, something I like to follow the Straight Down the Middle podcast from Jed Rubenfeld, and he has said many times that the president has the authority to do this under federal law, but if it extends beyond the scope of an emergency that he has surmised exists, then we might have some government overreach. Do you agree with that? Do you think that there is some power overreach that is concerning you right now from the Trump administration?
Well, the president can only declare emergency in an area that is federal, and public safety is not federal. It is retained by the states. It's that area of governance never delegated away. That's the theory under which the federal judge in Portland ruled last Friday and then again last Sunday. So if the president's going to declare an emergency, it would have to be, well, people can't get in the courthouse because the demonstrations are so thick around the courthouse. Well, that would be an emergency if a federal facility were shut down. But if there's a lot of shoplifting, or if there are demonstrations in the streets that are antagonistic to ICE, but they're not stopping traffic, that would not be a basis for an emergency. Now, that's one side of this. The other side of this is the Supreme Court has ruled that there is no such thing as emergency jurisdiction, that the rules apply no matter how bad things are in the streets. And that ruling was based on the Civil War, when people were killing each other in the streets. That's still good law today.
I guess final question, Judge. When you hear Hakeem Jeffries saying, we're going to fight this in the streets, is that an incitement to violence? I mean, you're basically telling people to...
Clayton, I think that's a very dangerous statement for a person in the government, particularly a person in leadership, to make. I'm sure if he were put under oath, he would say, we're going to fight it in the streets peacefully by demonstrating. And the law is, when you're talking about speech, if there is any, emphasize any, lawful interpretation of the speech, then the prosecution for speech fails. So that would probably be his defense. But the clip that you played doesn't have the caveat in it, and I think is dangerous for him to say.
I mean, they did take Trump off of social networks for that. That's an interesting choice after championing the president being taken off. So, okay.
Well, the people that run the social networks are probably a lot closer to Hakeem Jeffries than they are Donald Trump.
Right, that's true. Judge, great to see you. Thank you so much for this. As always, great to have you here. Oh, and I should point out, over 600 of these military lawyers were brought in a number of them were then being used as immigration judges in D.C. and other areas to expedite and go through.
That is lawful, and that is actually a smart use of their talent, and that I was aware of. Perhaps that is what we were talking about. So immigration courts do not have juries. They're not military tribunals. They are civilian lawyers.
What's
but
going
if a
on?
Military lawyer
What's going
puts
on?
civilian garb and becomes an immigration judge. In my view, that is a wise use of that person's talent, and there's absolutely no constitutional impediment to it. These are not Article III judges nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate. Immigration judges are lawyers hired by the Department of Homeland Security.
Great distinction. Okay, great to know. Yeah, everyone, the liberal media was slamming President Trump for an overreach of authority. Of course, of course. Judge, great to see you as always. Follow the Judging Freedom podcast. Had a great interview with Jeffrey Sachs.
Hello everyone. Welcome to JACKDAMJIEN YouTube channel. The location today. Thinking and hoping that you are well rested, that you are legal, your legal status is sorted, and that you will not be oppressed by a man that is keeping your legal status not Trump type, is not, making you slid it back into the ocean like Europe will be. It's not being racist and saying that these people do this, and these people do that, and those people do that, and these people have messy ponytails, and these people put grease in their ponytails. Don't be kidding that, man. It ain't about all that. It ain't even about that. Patty wax. What if I eat a flapjack, man? So look. Yeah. Okay. The setting's different, all right? The setting's different. Well, I made it. Okay, look. I've changed surroundings, yeah? To make sure that you, right, are in compliance with what I'm doing here. To see you right on the screen, reciprocating, putting out content, and also looking me in the eye and letting me know what you like and what you don't like. Because we in the business here are making the fans ball. We want to make sure you are welcome here. Give it up for the algorithm. 1 second. Give it up for the algorithm. Where's my donation? Get the likes up. Get them likes up. Get them likes up. Get the likes up. Okay. Get the likes up. Get my likes up. All right, man, you better get my likes up, man. I want my likes to get up. Right now. In this room, you better shout your name out. White boy, get a shout, yeah? You better get me likes up. Props. You better put me props in the chat, yeah? You better put the ones up. Get all ones in the chat, yeah? All of them picks up the shot. In the way, we talk about this immigration thing. You got those people coming in, yeah? Ain't even citizens. They're staying here for years. They're getting deported. They're getting found out, getting discovered. They ain't all Haitians. But in the business of hating, are staying here. Because, as you all know, they're supposed to be out of here. They ain't got no reason to be standing up and saying, right, so you can't take me things away. You gotta let me stay here. Okay, so illegal alien. Alright, listen, get pulled out of bed in the middle of the night or the middle of the mid-morning. You're taking the boots, you're taking the coals, right? Taking the scats, splitting the wigs, man. You're splitting all the wigs, you're taking all the shit. Yeah. Dress the jaws. Construction company contracts go, or with beats out the window. The landscaping things out of here. People ain't fixing them houses no more. They're scared. Right? There's little fellas getting the roof. Get the build roof, man. They put the house. And guess what, man? They're like, hold on, my friend. The ice is coming. The ice is coming. There's no ice here, but the ice here fall in my head, man. Oh my God. Oh my God, the orange was spit down. Oh my God, I can't say the ink like the orange. Man, the eggs, shortage, man. Oh my God. Hey, paisano. The paisano. Look, hey, Charlie. The orange here was $5 a pound, yeah? Now the eggs here are like $12 a pound. You see? They ain't doing it no more. That's how they eat. You know what I'm saying? You know? You know one of the top 10 countries that are getting deported? Somalia, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Germany, Guatemala, Mexico, China, India, right? France, and the United States. The last one is not very particular, right? But I just had to add that in. I just added from the semi-class Opus Aries. Okay, you know how to put the ones in. So pick you up, yeah? He ain't picking up Jack. Jack's like a naturalised English citizen that's not really like Britannia, Jason, but has the papers to prove that he is of not of Britannia of persuasion that he's coming in illegal, and it's understood that he is not kicked out yet. He is a essential worker, right, in this country. All right. So look, they're not really wanting to be in this country. They are gladly leaving and coming back. I just saw a video of a bloke saying that he crossed the border, old C-17 plane, mass kicked out, but it's all his things, all his cot in the house, everything he owns, job, everything, computer, even papers. He said he's walking across the border, back across, possibly in San Diego. So they have an effect, man. So they can deport these individuals here. They can walk right back. Well, I'll tell you what, if you deport them to Eritrea, they ain't walking right back. They ain't walking right back, man.
You ain't walking right back.
Ain't happening.
You walk right back.
Ain't happening, bro. No, it's sad sense, man. Oh hat there. They ain't coming back like that. It's pending now. They said you are like Guatemala, right? You are Guatemala skateboarder. You can probably come back and still skateboard, man. But guess what? Did you go out Eswatini, Costa Rica, Monterey? You ain't gonna be walking back the next day, man. You gonna need a jumbo jet passenger plane to bring you back here. Minimum $2,000 per 10 miles, man. You ain't walking back like that. You got cowboys. It's the Howard Desert. It's rocky, turbulent. You don't know where to be. So, please consider doing desert. A bloody Sarawak Stock History